So I was sitting at breakfast this morning and reflecting on just how much my life has changed over the years, from finances to relationships to my fitness and my image of myself to even my art and content creation, and how so many of those things required me to reject old beliefs that I had about myself and about the world. How I literally had to reprogram my mind and recondition it to think about everything differently. Because the reality is that if I was stuck in what things had been projected on me, or like what I had been told was acceptable, what I should expect from life, or what basically I had learned from my environment, I'd be in a very, very different place today. And that's what I want to get into today, because a lot of us know that we need to rethink the way that we see ourselves in the world in order to move forward. But how do you actually do that, right? Like, how do you actually take the steps necessary to make that a reality? Because the conditioning is happening all the time, from the time we are born, right? From school and how we're taught about learning and knowledge acquisition, to our workplaces, like how we are taught about money, how we think about money, what's out there and what's possible, but also your family life. Like if you're from a working class background, what you even think is possible, how much money is actually even in circulation and available for you if you can provide valuable services and valuable offerings to people, but also even relationships, like what you think a healthy relationship looks like, or how you think about families and so forth, maybe linked to the fact that did you come from a two-parent household or a single-parent household. Like all of these things play such a big role in the identity that we create. So let's go through it. Let's go down the list of things that I can say pinpoint have changed the way that I viewed myself in the world and had really material impacts on my life, because I think they can do the same for pretty much anybody. The first one, and it might be quite unusual that I put it here, but it's actually my corporate job. Now, I know a lot of people have spoken about corporate jobs and how, like, you get stuck in the rat race, and that all of that may be true to an extent, but I think actually working my corporate job exposed me to something that I hadn't really known as much coming from a working class background, and it's really about how much money is in circulation. And the reason why this step is so important is because when you start to see the way that money is flowing in a business, right, and the salaries that are available to you, and I should specifically say I work in tech, and seeing how much people are being paid on an individual level, just on a scale up. If I'm being paid this much, my manager's being paid this much, the team is costing however many millions a year, how much money is this company making? And this is not just for the sake of knowing, oh, they make lots of money, but it allows you to understand that there is no shortage of wealth or value that can be accessed in the world. It is then about how you are going to access it yourself and how you are going to bring value to the system and to the economy and to the market in order to access that, whether you go down the business route and entrepreneurial route or whether you go down the employee route. This was so valuable to me because I, to an extent, have only seen what is around me directly and the jobs of the people around me, which is limited in a sense, right? Because not everybody that I was around was working in tech or was working in corporate finance or whatever it was. So when I took that step into the world, it dramatically impacted the way that I saw money, finances, and what was possible. That doesn't mean that I want to be in the corporate world forever. Opposite, to be honest. But it gave me enough of a taste that I was like, oh, there's money. Oh, we can make money. Okay, cool. And so with all that being said, my corporate job really reframed the way that I thought about money and what was possible. The next thing, and it's probably a lot less surprising, but it's travel. Like, I have been traveling for a long time, right? Right now I'm in Spain. I've been, I don't know how many times I traveled last year, but I think I touched 4 continents. I have done a lot of traveling, and with each new place that I visit, the new people that I interact with, the new food that I eat, the way that I see people living, it changes the way, again, that I see the world and what is possible. There are places I go where the type of living is a lot slower, right? The pace of living is a lot slower, but the people seem just as happy, if not happier. Other places are more fast paced and it's a very different dynamic energy. People are living differently. For example, when I'm in New York versus when I'm in, like right now, in Gran Canaria, it's a very different lifestyle. But each of those allows me to see that there are different options for the way that you live your life. You don't have to live it in one particular way because of where you were born, right? So I, being born in South London, I have seen a type of way of living. I've seen, types of buildings, the way people's day-to-days are set up. That, in a sense, has conditioned me when I was very young to think about things in a certain way. However, the exposure that I got from traveling from a very young age, which I'm very blessed that my family, prioritized travel and seeing the world, even if we weren't the richest people ever, that changed what I thought was possible. And I've carried that with me into my adulthood and into my 20s. Like, I'm going to make this a priority because I know how much that I get from travel. It's like if you imagine something very squishy and malleable, and every time you go to a new country, you reshape it again, right? Oh, people like this. Like when I went to Japan, I was like, wow, whoa, this is like a different world. Like versus when I went to, say, Vietnam. And then when I was in Jamaica, like, it's a world of difference. And I know international travel isn't as accessible for everybody. However, I do actually think that it's probably more accessible than people think, in a sense that if you make that your priority over, say, spending on other things, you can see more of the world, but you can also see more of your actual country, which I've spoken about before. And because even the difference between the way people live in London, I think, towards places in the north or smaller villages is very different. And again, you can see the difference in the pace of lifestyle and what people prioritize and even how they eat and how they shop. Like going to their local butchers or their local markets to source their food is very different to, say, going to a supermarket in London. And what does that mean for the quality of your life and the type of person that you're going to be and the identity that you create for yourself? Leading on from that is content creation, and there's kind of two folds to this. It's both being a content creator and consuming content like videos on YouTube and TikTok. And I'll start with the latter, watching people, because this has honestly, like, I usually say this, but I think YouTube is one of the best things that has ever happened to our species. And I know that's a really, really big thing to say, or at least in the last 100 years. I think the democratization of knowledge and information and experiences, our ability to access people all around the world and hear from them firsthand about their experiences and how they learn things and how they have reshaped their own minds is, I don't even know if I can put into words how powerful that has been for so many people, because you realize you keep hearing people who have achieved big things and it's like, because I saw somebody else do it, or I saw somebody else doing something that I didn't know was possible, or I learned from YouTube how to code, or I learned from YouTube how to take photographs of weddings or scenes, and then I built my own company around it, and now, and now I'm shooting for Netflix. Like, these things are coming from the ability for us to now create content and then post it to the world. That is a really amazing thing that I think we take for granted, and just how powerful that is in us reshaping our own minds. And so this has been a huge thing for me. I've been watching YouTube since I was, I don't know, like I remember watching Patricia Bright when she was doing like fashion stuff, or what's Shirley B and people like that. But also people like Ali Abdaal that I've watched for years. Now people like Dan Coe. There's a wealth of people that I've watched that have helped reshape my mind, and seeing their own journeys and seeing, whoa, they were just someone like that who just, came from maybe more humble beginnings. All their paths were different, but I saw them transform in front of me. And that's another thing, like seeing them over the years, I've actually been able to watch their transformation almost in real time, which is incredible. Like if you've been watching this channel as well for years, and I've been on this for 4 years, you've probably seen me go from, my early 20s to now my mid to late 20s and been like, whoa, there's a transformation there that you've seen. And I think that has just reshaped what I think is possible. If they can do it and I can see somebody else do that, why can't I? I'm going to leave a few screenshots of some of my favorite channels that I watch, but actually I'm also just going to create a resource list. I think I've decided that as I'm doing this video, that I'm just going to create a list of the things that I speak about that I think would be useful if you're starting your own journey or interested in taking this a step further. The other element I spoke about was me actually creating content. So it's one thing to consume it, but actually creating content has reprogrammed my mind again about what's possible, like reconditioning how you can show up in the world and how you can use tools to your advantage, and then how you can then monetize things. Like I literally learn things and then speak about them on the internet and can make money from that. That's, again, another radical idea, but it reconditions what you think is possible and how you can use the skills and interests that you have to make a living effectively, to provide value to others and make a living. Because from school time, we're told, there's certain paths that you take in terms of you learn and then you take your tests and you get a job in a 9 to 5. And that's kind of the way you are shown about making money. Very rarely are you taught about entrepreneurship or taught about, like content creation is more recent now, but how you can deliver value in different ways to people. And creating content has shown me like there's almost no interest or no skill that you have that there isn't a demand for in some sense, right? That is completely useless, as you may have been told or thought about certain skills and interests that you have, like maybe art or maybe dance or maybe photography or anything like that, or even your things like maths and science and tech. Like, there are channels who are literally talking about history. It's so funny because, like, what are you going to do with a history degree or geography degree in a sense of what I did? There are people who have like whole channels with millions and millions of subscribers who are making content about what they're interested in and have people following and, yearning for the next video, and they're making a living off of that interest. And so again, this reshapes what you think is possible with what it is that you have been dealt. The hand and the cards that you've been dealt don't seem like they're always going to be as bad as you think when you start to reframe it in this world of possibilities. Kind of related to content creation is books, which I guess you could argue is like the original form of content creation or like one of the more archaic versions. But I guess in a sense, there is an act of creation. There is content there. The actual vehicle just happens to be paper and pen. But books have honestly revolutionized, again, the way that I've thought about the world. And it's the same premise in the sense of when I speak about videos. It's about this idea of getting value from other people and their experiences and their learning in a very condensed format, right? A book is very condensed and you can learn so much. Like, people are condensing what they've learned in years and lifetimes into books, and you have access to them. You just get to read them. Like, you don't even have to do all the stuff that they've done and go through all the struggles that they've gone through. You just get to read the book and get the lessons. And some of the books that I've read that have reprogrammed my mind include things like Atomic Habits and Rich Dad Poor Dad, The 4-Hour Workweek, even The Defining Decade, which I went into a lot of depth on in this channel. These books have allowed me to, again, tap into different ways of viewing both everything from even the biological responses that we have to certain things to our physical responses to things and how we move through the world, how we see things like money. And like I was saying before, like even Rich Dad Poor Dad, whatever you think about the book in terms of, is it a classic or not? But so many people talk about this book because I think it introduced concepts that a lot of us have not been introduced to about the type of work you're going to do and what that means in terms of what you benefit and what you reap. And these books, again, allow us to access information that we may not be able to from where we're grown up and the areas that we've been in and what we're learning from school, because a lot of the time we're not learning things like financial information from school, right? It's just not what we learn. But we can tap into that through these books and through these other sources of content and information. And another fantastic book that I actually wish I had read earlier is called The Obstacle is the Way, which I just recently did a video on. But that book even changes the way that you view the obstacles in your life. Like when you're talking about reframing how you see yourself and how you see the world, obstacles form a huge part of that, like whatever journey that you're on. And actually reframing how you see obstacles so that they become strengths. They become strengths in your journey, and how you can actually do that. Game changer, absolute game changer. So books are one of the things that have completely helped me rechange and reprogram the way I see myself. So one of the most important aspects of reframing your mind is actually the people that you're going to encounter. Like, I've listed a lot of things, books and things like that, but actually at the core of a lot of that, and almost all of those things, are the people behind it. And this is why the people I have encountered over the last, I want to say 5 years especially, have had a dramatic impact on the way that I see the world. And some of these people I have met through, just being out and about and going to different places that I wouldn't usually frequent, places in central London, again, places around the world where you're bumping into people who experience life very differently, who come from very different walks of life, who think about the world differently, who think about relationships, money, art, science very differently to you. And if you allow yourself to be open to speak to them, the impact they can have on your life can be out of this world effectively. And I've spoken about this in other videos because I think this being open to speaking to people who are different to you is so fundamental to actually growing as an individual and reprogramming your mind. If you want to stay as you are, keep talking to the same people, doing the same things, never evolving, never moving forward. If you are trying to break out of that and move forward, it will require that you encounter things and people that you don't usually, right? And any new version of yourself that you are trying to level up to, right? If you text it like you're deploying the next version, well, in this case, you are going to need access to different people to influence the version that you are creating, the code that you are writing effectively. This is why you have to move out of your comfort zone, because comfort is lovely in a sense, but it is the antithesis of change, right? If you are comfortable by nature, you can't be changing because change is usually uncomfortable. It requires us going into the unknown and and, encountering things that we have less evidence for that we can get past or that we know how to navigate. But people have changed my life. Like, from the friends that I've encountered from different parts of the world. I have friends, from New York. I have friends that I have met who are from like Dubai. All of these different parts and the way they see themselves, even different parts of London, right? Like, even growing up in one part, but meeting people from like North London, West London, people who live in Central London, people who live in the North, like, and seeing again how they view the world and what they can teach me has been great. Ultimately, everything I've spoken about comes down to exposure. What you expose yourself to, the type of people, the type of books, the type of videos, the type of experiences that you expose yourself to. And the more that you can push into different experiences and different forms of exposure, the more you allow yourself to draw from a varied pool of information, right? A diverse pool of information versus the same things that you've been conditioned and, grown up around for all of these years. Anyway, that's it from me. I'm going to go edit this video by the poolside and enjoy the last few days I have at this resort. And I will see you guys in the next video.